All right, I'm back. Check it out. So, I keep hearing the narrative that it's just not possible to give Ward the fight. You guys are contradicting yourselves, all right? You just are. Like, listen to yourselves. Listen to what you're saying, okay? Now, the other day, yesterday, I believe it was, I gave the example. It's the one I happened to pick. I have others, but the example I gave was when I scored a draw for my Donna Mayweather, the first fight, right? I had some Mayweather fans come at me and say, that's not possible. Mayweather clearly won these rounds, right? And then another Mayweather fan would tell me, no, Mayweather clearly won these rounds. And another Mayweather fan would tell me he clearly won these other rounds. So, but they would give me different rounds. It's like all 12 rounds were in play. They disagreed with one another which rounds were clearly won. So what I'm saying is there's something similar going on here, right? I've heard Kovalev fans, right? I've heard Kovalev fans say, I could maybe see give Ward round 3, but not round 4. I've heard another Kovalev fan say, well, you could give him round 4, but not round 3. Really? I could see you giving him round 6 to Ward, but not round 10. And then I've heard the opposite. I could see you give Ward round 10, but not round 6. I've heard some Kovalev fans say, I gave Ward 4, 5, and 6, but they were all very close rounds that could have gone either way. I've heard some say, no. He clearly won those rounds. It seems to me like you guys don't have a consensus here. It seems to me like there really isn't. I think a lot of you guys need to get together and really organize and get your story straight. Just a little bit, you know. Um, I was listening to, what is it called, Ringside Report with Joe Habib and Eric over there. Just calls in, and he literally said, I gave Kovalev the first 6 rounds, every single one. And he admitted 4, 5, and 6 were close. I think he said 3 too. Those were close rounds, but I gave them all to Kovalev. And then he said, but round 6 through 12, it's crazy if you give Ward more than 4 of those. When you just gave him 3 close rounds, according to your own logic. Right? I keep hearing things like, well, Ward, he had to make up for the knockdown. Actually, no, he didn't. This is what a lot of people are not understanding. I keep hearing people tell me, I could maybe see a draw, but not Ward winning. What do you mean maybe see a draw? How is a draw possible? Have you asked yourself this question? If they both won 6 rounds apiece, it wouldn't have been a draw. Kovalev would have won by a point. But to win, in order to win the fight, he still had to win 7, not 8. Right? Now that one was already debunked, right? Because there was actually people running around. I mean, 8 or again, that was inaccurate. That was completely inaccurate. All right. I'm also hearing, well, look, Kovalev won the rounds, the ones he won more clearly. 1, 2, and 3, they were just clear. Even though I've actually heard other people that had Kovalev winning give the 3rd round to Ward, by the way. This is people that had Kovalev winning. Some of them gave him round 3, some of them didn't. Some of them gave him 4, some of them didn't. Some of them gave him 6, some of them didn't. Some of them gave him 10, some of them didn't. All right? There's no consistency with you guys. The people that have the same guy winning. All right? So it's okay for someone who had Kovalev winning to give the 3rd round to Ward because they ultimately had the guy you think should have won winning, right? It's okay to do that. But if somebody that had Ward winning, No, you can't give him round 3. That's ridiculous. No, right? Not at all. This is actually not that complicated. It's not. This is the reality, right? It was a close fight. That's reality number one. Of course, look, even the way I scored it, if I decide to give Kovalev round 6, Kovalev wins the fight, right? And I'm not that far apart from the consensus. A lot of people had Kovalev winning, but not as wide as freaking Letterman, right? That's I see many journalists that had Kovalev winning, but they had him winning literally by 1 round, and of course with a knockdown, But that's how they had him winning. What else am I hearing? I'm also hearing, oh, but come on, round 6 through. I mean, round 7 to 12, they were so close. I mean, you can't give them all to Ward. Look, the more I look at it, round 10, I'm definitely leaning Kovalev. All right, I'll give him 10. Right, but there's no rule that says that if the rounds are all close, that you can't give them all to. It is possible that a guy could edge out round after round. That is a possibility. To say that you can't do that, there's no rule that says that. There's no rule that says, hey, look, if there's 6 rounds and they're like very close, you got to give some of those to the other guy too. Because they're just, that's just no, right? Let's look at it this way, right? Let's look at it this way. Let's say it's a 7-game series, right? 7-game series. Baseball. The way you guys sound is like this. This is the way you sound. Let's take the Cubs and the Indians that they just played, right? This is the way you guys sound. Round 1 and 2, that'll be basically because it's 12 rounds, so we've got to narrow it down to 7. So rounds 1 and 2, Kovalev, let's see, is the Indians, and Ward is the Cubs, right? All right. It's like the Cubs the Indians destroy the Cubs. Game 1, just destroy them. 20-0. They just slaughter the shit out of them. 20 runs, they fuck them up. Game 1, right? They just fuck them up. All right, you know what happens in game 2? The score is 0-0. Literally, the score is 0-0. It's a brand new game, right? Let's say, hey, the Indians pull it off. Game 2, they win it, clearly, 3-0. They went 3-0, 3 runs to nothing. Game 2 goes to the Indians, right? What happens game 3? It's 0-0 again, right? It's 0-0 again. Kovalev, again. The Indians, 7-0. They fucking run another fucking train on the Cubs, right? They're up 3-0 in the World Series. Look how many runs they've scored. 20 runs in the first game, and then 3 rounds in the second game, and 7 runs this time. Oh, this shit's over. It's a wrap, right? Now, let's say that the Cubs win 4 straight games, but barely. Like 1-0. They barely win, right? The last game is like 1-1. It goes overtime, and they barely win it at the end, right? 2-0. Now, are you going to say, yeah, but come on, like the games that the Indians won, they just won more clearly. Look at all the runs they ran. Add up the runs. They did better. Add up the runs. You got to add them up. Now, look, maybe you feel that, well, no, I feel like Kovalev pulled it off, barely, 2-1, right? But you can't argue. A lot of these rounds were close, so you could have argued either way. But it's a robbery. Like you can't make that argument, right? You can't. You can't say, yeah, man, the second half, all those rounds could have gone either way. you know, but you got to split it in half because it was so close. That's not the way it works. Okay, you don't. The judges are scoring it as the fight is happening. They don't know if the next round's going to be close or not. You can't just assume. All right. So if there's a close round and you feel that so and so won, then you give them the round. Right. And then the next round happens. If you feel this guy edged it out, you give him the round. Right. You don't get an eraser. You don't get to say, oh my God, it's been 6 rounds and this guy barely edged out, you know, most of these rounds. I'm going to have to give it because it was so close. I got to take away 2 rounds so I can make it even here. That's not the way it works. All right. Now I'm hearing some things. Right. Now boxing doesn't exactly have the cleanest rep. Okay. So it's not like any of this is impossible. Right. But I keep hearing these conspiracy theories, right? Hearing these conspiracy theories, they're just unbelievable, right? I actually, first of all, what's the name of that one guy? Did a video about him a couple of months back or a month ago. You know, he claims, right, that the boxing establishment, all right, that the quote-unquote boxing establishment wanted war to win. Doesn't explain why. Doesn't give out any names. He's a reporter, right? You would think a reporter would give out names, right? Who's part of this establishment? Can you give us some names? What's the purpose? For what reason are they going to do this? Can this be explained? Great journalistic integrity and great journalistic work. I mean, just brilliant. They just throw a term like establishment out there because this happens to be the year that everybody's anti-establishment. Brilliant journalism, right? Just brilliant. This is just unbelievable journalism, right? So if I understand this correctly, right? If I understand this correctly, the boxing establishment has an agenda against Eastern European fighters, right? That's the agenda. Now, is it true when you look at the big scope of things, is it true that more often than not, in a close fight, the fighter in his home country is going to more often than not get a nod, right? Yeah. Now, does that always happen? No. Kawasaki got a decision win against Bernard Hopkins, right? It's not like you can't win. No, but Kawasaki's from the UK. That doesn't count. All right. Okay, fine. Right? All right. I mean, I've seen very controversial things done in many countries, right, against foreign fighters, right? And I'm not saying it's not a problem, right? But this idea that something was collaborated in some smoke-filled room to just, rob Kovalev is unbelievable. The idea that they already had the scorecards written down before the fight even happened is even more unbelievable, right? You mean they just brilliantly, all 3 of them just guessed that what happened in the beginning was going to happen? Or was Kovalev in on it? Like, did Kovalev play a part in this? I'm hearing things like Kovalev really wanted to give us a wink and a nod and show us how he could have really have dominated him. So he knocked him down. And then the bought-off Kovalev went on to, play along with the establishment games. It just is this crazy, weird shit. Why would Kovalev agree to that? For what reason? Why would Kovalev not take him out if he had him out? Why would he just decide, no? I'm hearing things like Kovalev was told he was going to be robbed, so he didn't take this fight serious. Really? And what proof do these people have of this? They have none. There is no proof, right? I guarantee his trainers about this, they would probably say that that's the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard, right? Because that's stupid. It just is, all right? And I think what's happening here is it's a mixture of a couple things. Do I believe there's some people that watch the fight and genuinely believe, hey, you know what? I think Kovalev won, right? Yes, I do. But that's not what's going on here. In the grand scheme of things, the fight doesn't warrant the outrage that it's getting. It just doesn't, right? It doesn't warrant that outrage whatsoever. No one is disputing the first 2 rounds. No one is, most people are giving Kovalev round 6, round 10. Nobody's really disputing those rounds. And there's not a majority consensus, but people that have award winning the fight, in large part, are giving Kovalev those rounds, right? There's no reason for guys like Kevin Iole to just score the fight for Andre Ward. For what reason? For what reason, if the quote-unquote establishment has it in for Eastern European fighters, for what reason would so many American boxing writers, right, have Kovalev winning the fight? If this was a big, conspiracy. Can somebody explain this to me? How does this work? Can you explain to me how it would all have worked? Could the judges have been influenced by the crowd noise and things like that? Could they have been influenced by that? Yes, right? I don't always agree with judges and the scorecards, right? You don't have to always agree. But I feel that the boxing judges that scored this fight had it closer than Letterman. I think they told a more accurate story about what's going on. I keep hearing people. I just heard a video of somebody saying, I never saw Kovalev staggered and almost knocked out, as if that's some form of criteria to score a fight. That's not how you score the fight. It's that. You don't disqualify punches because you don't feel that they hurt Kovalev. That's not the way it works, right? And forget about your opinion. Look for it in the scoring criteria and show it to me, right? Another narrative that needs to be put to rest, right? And I'm hearing this from both sides. It's all good, right? The whole, you got to take it from the champ. Can you find me? Go right now to the rule book and find me the rule that says that. Can somebody find? Look, no. The guy who won the round wins the round. That's it. If he just edged it out, if he just barely pulled it off, if he won in a dominating fashion, it doesn't matter. You win the round, you win the round. 10-9, that's it. The rules are real specific. There's no such thing as, well, because when you're the champ, you got to literally go take it to the champ. Like, no. That's not true, all right? And forget about your opinion. Find me in the rule book where it says that. Find me where it says specifically, if you're going to fight the champ, you got to, quote unquote, take it from the champ. You got to be coming forward at all times. Can you find me that in the rule book? You're not going to find it. So don't waste your time, right? That is some made up bullshit, right? That has never been the case. That's never been the case, right? In fact, that was a quote unquote, it was an unofficial saying, right? Because traditionally it was just harder to take it from a champion, right? That's it. Meaning, like, if it's a very, very close round, the argument is, if it's a very, very close round, I mean, if you could score a 10-10, then you got to give it to the champ. No. All right? You give it to the guy you believe won that specific round. Each round tells its own story, right? If you score 4 straight rounds for one fighter, and they were all close, then he won those 4 rounds. There's no rule that says, well, look, if he edges out 4 rounds, but the guy's a champion, you got to give the champion at least 2 of those rounds because he's a champ. Like, no. There's no rule that says that, right? If you want to go to the commissions and you want to, go to the sanctioning bodies and change the rules, if you want this to be an actual rule, okay, then go ahead and advocate for that and go change the rules if you want. But that's not the rule, right? That there's no rule that says a guy cannot win, a good amount of close rounds, and there's no rule. There's nothing like that. Right? Clean, effective punching, defense, right? Range generalship, and effective aggression, right? Those are the 4 that you use to score. That's it. No, but look at his face, okay? Nowhere does it say, is he bleeding in the nose, take away points, okay? Nowhere does it say, if he's fighting in a way that you believe, that you could interpret as cowardly, go ahead and take away points, okay, or don't give him the round. Nowhere does it say, okay, that, to just pick your preference of the style that you like and give it to that fighter, okay? Nowhere does it say that if 4 straight rounds were close, go ahead and split it even, right? Nowhere does it say, all right, who had the face more busted up than the other guy, okay? Nowhere does it say if a guy got the knockdown, right, then that means, you got to give him credit for that in every round. Nowhere in the rule book does it say that if the guy is a champion, he needs to get beat the fuck up in that round for him to get that fight, right, to win, to lose that round. Nowhere does it say, right, that, one round is more important than the other, right? Nowhere does it say that. So we need to stop making up, scoring criterias, okay? We need to stop. Nowhere does it say who would you have rather been at the end of the round. That's stupid. They give you 4 things to score on, right? 4 things. And it is objective, but that's what you base it on. And you base it on a round-by-round basis. And all 4 count. You don't get to pick which one you count the most, or you don't get to say, well, to me, aggression is more important. No, you don't get to pick. You're supposed to try your very best to be objective and factor in those 4 criteria. That's it, right? Nowhere does it say, give it to the guy that stumbled the less during the fight. Nowhere does it say, hey, if he didn't rock the guy, he couldn't clearly win this round. Nowhere does it say any of these things. You're not going to find this in the scoring criteria. You're not going to find it, right? So stop making up these things that just don't go, right? Just because they don't go. You can give the fight to Kovalev by following this criteria, right? But you're not going to follow it because you're going to realize the following, right? That the fight was a lot closer than you think it was. You're going to find out that whether the judges are paid off or not, that it is possible for a judge that's not paid off to give the fight to Ward, right? That's what you're going to find out. If you actually do it and you do it in a genuine fashion, right? That's what you're going to find. I'm not apologetic for any of this, right? Like if you look at it, the way I mentioned, you can give it to Kovalev. You can give Kovalev you could argue round 6 for him. You could argue round 10 for him, right? You could argue round 4 for him and round 3 for him. And it's, pretty wide in the scorecard at that point. But there's no, you could argue round 5 for him if you want, right? So, but the idea that, no, but people this is what happened, right? They had it in their heads. And I know they did because I read this a lot on social media. One, I kept hearing people say that Ward needed 8 rounds to win the fight, which was incorrect. That's not true, right? So the first time you watched it, you had that in your head and you said to yourself, there's no way you want 8 rounds, right? Because it just looked like a deep hole and that's it. So you had Kovalev winning, right? And I think this happened to a lot of people. He needed 7 rounds, the same amount of rounds he would have needed anyway without the knockdown. Right? That's number one. Number two, just because you say, well, I didn't see Ward do anything on the inside, doesn't mean he didn't do anything on the inside. Because I watched the same fight, and I did see him do things on the inside. So obviously something's missing in this puzzle, right? Something's obviously missing. I saw him hit body shots on Kovalev. I actually saw them. Every single time I went back to watch the fight, I saw the body shots. I saw the jab to the body that Ward was landing. All right, a lot of you guys are sourcing CopyBox. Go ahead. Who landed more jabs? Ward did. All right, according to CopyBox. I don't look at CopyBox, but a lot of you guys do. Right. But even if you look at CopyBox, a lot of you guys look at CopyBox and you say, well, who landed more punches? Okay, I'm going to give it to him. If you do it that way, right, just by that, I mean, you would be giving Ward about 5 to 6 rounds, just with that alone, right? But that's not what tells the fight, right? That's not what you got to actually watch around. You got to see what happens, and you're giving 4 factors you consider when you score a fight. That's what you're given, right? And that's it. I keep hearing people say things like, oh man, this fight had a lot of 10-10 rounds. I mean, it was so hard to score out of those rounds, but they could have gone either way. Listen to what you say. I keep hearing this, and I wondered to myself, are you or are you not listening to yourselves? You say in one hand, there was about 6 rounds that could have gone either way. But giving them all to Ward is preposterous. It's crazy. You just said they could have gone either way. So if they could have gone either way, in your opinion, why could it not go to Ward? You know, like, it's either you make the argument that Kovalev clearly won every single one of those rounds. But if you say that they could have gone either way, then they could have gone either way. And so just scoring them individually, all right, depending on how you're looking at the fight, right, and seeing that so many of the rounds have the same characteristics in them, right, it's whether you say, I give Ward 4 of those 6 at the most, or whether you give them all 6, right? Given the fact that so many of these rounds have the same characteristics in them, it's not as crazy as you think it is to have given Ward 5 or 6 of those rounds that you say were swing rounds, right? I keep hearing people say, I mean, who was it? Rilo. I heard you, Rilo. I gave Kovalev 3 rounds that he for sure won, right? Guess what? He needed 3 more. Right? So at the end of the day, if you can't say for sure he won 6, then you can't say he for sure won the fight. Right? So like I said, this was a close fight. And the reactions that I'm seeing to this it's hilarious, right? The reactions I'm seeing are just unbelievable, right? They just are. So how did the fix work, by the way? I want to know. You know, I think some of the media members that are part of the boxing media saying things like the boxing establishment wanted this to happen. You're reporters, right? Then tell us who's part of this boxing establishment. Huh? Can you tell me that? You had HBO commentators saying they felt Kovalev won. Conveniently, a lot of people are pointing that out right now, right? I mean, I just saw some bozo over there, right? I just saw that idiot over there say something like, you know, discrediting the old-ass judges, right? but then they refer to Larry Merchant and his opinion about the fight. You guys have any fucking clue how old Larry Merchant is? There's a reason he's not commentating anymore, right? There's a reason he's no longer qualified to commentate on fights anymore, right? So whoever was in on this, it sure as hell wasn't HBO. It sure as hell wasn't the Boxing Association of America, right? So you have some explaining to do, right? There's a lot of explaining that has to be done. Can't never rule out that funny business didn't happen, but you need proof if you're going to make accusations because you're not just a fan on YouTube. You're a quote-unquote journalist, all right? And journalists need to report facts to people. They need to give names, right? You can't just say the establishment. Who's the establishment? A lot of you guys need to understand this. Listen to me very closely. Boxing isn't that big of a fucking deal, okay? I saw Big Mike joke about it, but there are some people that are tying the presidential election that happened last week to this. It's not that big, man, right? I mean, the bar I saw the fight on, some people care, sure, but 5 minutes later, they started hitting music and everybody moved on. Like, it was like done. It was done and over with. Most people said, well, maybe there'll be a rematch. We'll see. Right? Okay, like, it's not that big of a deal. Your life isn't over, right? It's not the end of times. It's not like this fuss that you're making it out to be. Right? I heard someone argue. I saw actually someone argue that this was the establishment's way. Let me see if you can follow his logic. This was the establishment's way of getting back, okay, for what happened in the presidential election. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this. What does he mean by this? Right? Like, because Putin apparently helped, hack the emails of the DNC. And this was the quote-unquote establishment's way of screwing over a Russian, right? Oh, okay. This is brilliant stuff. You can't make this shit up, right? You just can't, right? And why, like, I guess that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. It is what it is. So you're telling me Putin couldn't have, done a helping hand for Kovalev? He could have done some, I wonder what they did with all three judges, by the way, right? Because you would think something would have leaked. You would think all these journalists, right, that are talking about the quote-unquote establishment. Oh, I called it. I knew this was going to happen. I knew he was going to win a close decision because the establishment wants him to win. So I'm guessing, right, a lot of these, reporters who were in Vegas, right, were doing some great investigative work. Since they knew for a fact, I'm sure they got some form of hint, okay? I'm sure they had some form of whistleblower. You would think, right, with their great investigative journalist skills, they have some type of whistleblower, just someone that is spilling the beans, so they can report this because this is illegal, right? It would be illegal activity if this were to happen. I'm sure they report this, right? I'm positive. Like this is going to get, these reporters are going to really dig deep and someone's going to get in trouble for this in a commission, right? That they're going to find, this is the internet. I'm sure WikiLeaks and Putin over there, they're going to find a way to leak emails from DStyleBoxing that I was sending to the commission, where I was saying that, hey, the moment you screw Ward, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to make the argument that it was a close fight. I'm sure those emails are going to get leaked, right? I'm sure you're going to find leaks of emails from other YouTubers, right, that were collaborating in all this. But in all seriousness, I think you're going to find, emails. You're going to have a whistleblower, someone that exposes, right, the fraudulent activity that was going on, just to ensure that Kovalev loses the fight, right? I'm sure this is going to happen. I'm positive, right? I can't wait for this amazing journalistic, investigation to go underway, right? I want to know what the name of the establishment members are. I want to know. Was Hillary in on this? Was there anything about screwing over Kovalev in the Hillary emails that they uncovered? I don't know, man. Maybe. There's 600,000 of them. We got to find it. We got to get to the bottom of this. Okay, first of all, boxing ain't even that big to have an establishment. Okay, that's number one. Okay, it's not even that big. Okay, this whole idea that there'll be some form of establishment behind this. Okay, if you say so, right? If you say so. But Letterman, look, man, right? Have I seen fights where I felt the guy won, right? But I never went out of my way to say that was a robbery, right? I felt Marquez won the third fight against Pacquiao. He won that fight. But I didn't come on here and say all these judges are paid off, right? Plus, if you were going to do like a big scheme, right, where you're going to get 3 judges to screw over, like if there's an establishment, right, that was going to screw over a Russian fighter, you would think, right, that they would get, right? Now, first of all, people don't even understand how hard it is to just have a judge, because I'm not saying this shit's never happened. Don King was notorious for it, okay? But you could actually link to it, kind of. Like he was really like the judge that gave Chavez, some rounds that were like kind of questionable. Like there was always that one judge, but it just so happens that judge was staying at a luxurious hotel and was treated fairly well right before the fight, and you could actually link to that, okay? And it would always be that even the lawsuit of Frankie Randall, like there was that one judge that just had Chavez winning, right? And it was several Don King fighters. Now you're saying it's so gangster that they got all 3 judges on board. All 3 of them. All 3. And nothing got leaked. No whistleblower, no nothing. Either these journalists just suck ass, right? Or maybe it's not as big as you think it is, right? But if they're so gangster, they could like sway not 1, not 2, but 3 judges, and nothing gets leaked. Especially with today's technology, with people carrying phones, and you would think some audio would come out. Do you guys know, like, if a judge was being told, hey, you got to make sure Ward wins and this, that, to the point where people are saying Kovalev was told he wasn't going to win, right? I mean, you would think this shit would get leaked somewhere. Somebody in Kovalev's team. Like, yeah, I overheard, like, them telling Kovalev he's not going to win. Like, this is something. Like, something would come out, right? And you would just think something would come out. You would think, right? But no. Right? But, like, if they're so gangster to the point that they could tell the fight, they could go to Kovalev and say, you're going to fucking lose. Don't even bother training. Just show up and you know what? We'll just land one good shot. Ward's going to go down, and then from there, we're just going to make it controversial too, just for the fuck of it. If they're so gangster, right, that they couldn't sway, they could tell the fucking fighter, they could go to Kovalev and spit on his face, say you're going to lose, right? And they could easily do this, right? if they're so gangster that they could make 3 judges, not 1, not 2, but 3, all be in the same team, you would think that they would have thought this a little better, right? You would think that they would just pay off 2 of the judges because you only need 2 to win, right? It makes it a lot less likely to get caught, right? The one judge, a better chance of maybe if Kovalev did dominate, then at least one of the judges could have given it to him. Or like you would think, like at least just 2. I mean, 1 has always been the traditional thing, like even in the mafia days, right? But 2, I mean, you would think, because you only need 2 to win. So why all 3 would be on board is beyond me. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, you would think. I mean, you don't think. I mean, this is the establishment, right? They're the most powerful people in the world. It's like Illuminati type shit, right? Like you would think they would have the foresight to know, hey guys, if we're gonna pay people off to do it, wouldn't it be a smart idea to like not have them all be American? Maybe we should like hire some. I'm sure we could find some Russian doctor, somebody that will do this. I mean, it's not that hard, They could have found somebody, right? They could have found, or if not just a Russian, they could have found some Latino judge somewhere, or a Canadian judge. They could have found some German judge to pay off, right? Like they didn't have the foresight for this. I don't know. I'm just saying, right? So there you go. Okay. So that's all I'm saying. I just want to know what the establishment is. What is it? Who's in on it? Because look, when Manny Pacquiao got outboxed by Floyd Mayweather, I mean, and the vast majority of the media had Mayweather winning that fight, right? I kept hearing about how, no, this is all part of the, I kept hearing the same establishment argument too, but they were saying guys like Dan Raphael were in on it. Look, that's why they scored the fight this way. And Kevin Ioli's in on it. And Mannix is in on it. And that whole media is in on it. Right? But now when they did score the fight for the American fighter, a lot of these media members, all of a sudden, and they're actually arguing, you got Doug Fisher arguing that the fight was a robbery. He's from the Ring magazine, right? He called it the worst decision he's ever seen. Okay, Doug Fisher was either acting out of emotion or something, because that's not even close, remotely close to being true, right? Anyway, and I don't want to hear shit from Larry Merchant, okay? Like usually Larry Merchant is some source, right? Larry Merchant was the same guy that argued, right, that De La Hoya didn't win the fight with Trinidad because he was running in the last few rounds, right? Not taking into account the rounds that De La Hoya clearly won. And by the way, that's another example of a fight that, as I watched it more and more, right, you can argue Trinidad won, right? You could argue it because of the way it played out. Sure, De La Hoya looked very dominant in the first 5 rounds, right? But then the way he was starting to fight after that, and it became more negative as the fight continued. It was literally throwing no punches at some point. You could argue Trinidad won, right? You could argue that. But my point is, Larry Merchant's argument wasn't that Trinidad won more rounds. His argument was that De La Hoya was running. And it was actually Larry Merchant and HBO that told people, right? I'll never forget this. They told people that the championship rounds 10, 11, and 12 are like the fourth quarter in football. If you lose those rounds, it makes like the rest, everything else you did, null and void. That's not true. Okay? That's stupid. That's not in the scoring criteria. Cool. All right. Anyway, that's all I got regarding this fight. I'm pretty much done talking about this fight. Not much else to talk about. Okay, not much else to talk about. Right? I don't really see much else, to be honest with you. Right? The one point I was going to make, and I already made in the other videos, but the body work, right, of the body work of Ward, it was evident that it was successful, and it did have an impact on Kovalev. Meaning that if in rounds like 5 and rounds 4, these middle rounds, if you were giving Ward credit, right, for the body work, you were correct in doing so because you saw the effects of it later in the fight, right? Not that they matter later in the fight in the sense that they're no longer landing later in the fight, right? Every round is scored differently, right? But what I'm saying is, if you landed punches in the body, okay, and it's just to make a point, body shots don't look beautiful. They don't make people go, oh, okay. They don't make a crowd roar, right? But they are effective, and they count for a reason, right? And at the end of the day, from the waist up, punch, and that's it. So whether you made a dude's head bounce back or whether you hit him in the rib, it's the same thing, right? It's still a body punch or a headshot, whatever. It's a power punch that's landed, all right? Anyway, that's it. There's nothing else to say about this fight. Right? Nothing. Did I ask some questions? Sure. I just want to know. I want to break it down for me. Do some investigative work as a journalist and find out who was behind, okay, who the boxing establishment is and who was behind, the so-called robbery. That's all I ask. I mean, it's ridiculous, the boxing establishment. What the fuck is the boxing establishment, right? It's just dumb, right? But go ahead and let me know. Break it down. That's all I'm saying. Peace.